And now we are back for the second panel. I remind you that the questions for the first panel weren't answered. We will reply via email, so we will send the answers to the people who asked them. We will now start the second panel, which is on energy, where the conversation will be focusing on managing and using global energy resources, the expected future sources of energy, and the impacts on mobility, as well as the inventions that Europe is patenting in terms of harnessing technology. To introduce this theme and to let you know that we will be able to do yoga inside a Nissan X-Trail, we will be speaking to the Advanced Product Strategy and Planning for Nissan, the director for this, Clíodhna Lyons. We will also be speaking to Nicolas Tshann, Product Marketing Manager for Nissan, Jorge Cruz, the Chair of the Portuguese Energy Association, and Yann, the Chief Economist of the European Patent Office. But we will begin with Clíodhna, who will be talking to us. Hello, good morning.
The studio is yours.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you for having me here this morning. So my name is Clíodhna Lyons. It is a tough one, I know. It's an Irish name that causes me problems everywhere I go.
I tried.
And you did very well. You did very well.
Thank you.
I've heard a lot worse. And I'm the director for product strategy and planning for Africa, Middle East, India, Europe, and Oceania here at Nissan. Thank you for inviting me to participate. It's been a great event. I was listening to the previous panel and really enjoyed it. And I hope this one will be just as good with some good interactive questions.
I'm sure it will.
So let me begin by taking everyone back to physics class. Don't worry, it's not going to be a lecture on our laws of physics and a reminder of them. But there is one in particular I want to touch on this morning. Does anyone remember Newton's second law of motion? It's made famous, of course, by the Newton's cradle that I'm showing on the screen. It states that if a force acts on an object, it will cause an acceleration of that object. The law is a great example of cause and effect, in this case between force and motion. Every effect has a specific and predictable cause. Every cause has a specific or predictable effect. It means that everything we have in our lives right now is an effect, a result of a specific cause. Each and every decision we've made and every action that we've taken has set events into motion, creating predictable and specific effects that we are now experiencing in our lives. I mean, it's quite an incredible thing, especially when you think about everything that's going on in the world. As 2020, let me just make sure. Yep. As 2020 closed, countries all around the world counted the cost of the deadliest year of wildfires in history. Indeed, just in California alone, there were 10,000 wildfires last year. They burned down over 4 million acres of land. They resulted in over 30 deaths and destroyed more than 10,000 structures. The worst of all, of course, is that 2021 is predicted to be even worse. And as 2021 dawned, full of hope for most of us that the vaccine rollout would bring the COVID pandemic to a close, incredible sights came to us from the US, a mob storming the seat of US democracy, something we had never imagined seeing. They were fueled by conspiracy theories and encouraged by the claims of election stealing made by their own president. 5 people died that day and over 140 were injured. Brexit also came into effect in January, with long queues forming and paperwork at borders. But the impacts are going on, and even some of the lesser recognized impacts are happening. As an Irish person, I watched it all unfold since they voted to leave the European Union in 2016 with a mixture of interest and unease, fear, surprise. But all of those emotions actually have been replaced by sadness in recent weeks as I see the violence start up again in Ireland. by the British community that now feels cut off from the homeland. Petrol bombs and rocks have injured dozens of police officers, making us feel like we're stepping back to the 1980s rather than moving forward in our progressive world. And of course, how could I talk about the world right now without talking about that little virus that has brought us all to our knees? You might be familiar with the one I'm talking about. 12 months in, and COVID is still dominating our every thought, our every movement. As someone who has lived and worked in 5 European countries, the ideas of our borders closing seemed just impossible to me. But that's exactly what happened. It totally upended our lives. In short, our world is in chaos. We are in a period where the unthinkable is our everyday reality. And we need to ask ourselves, are these all the result of man-made causes? But what if the law of cause and effect is harnessed? What if it's leveraged? If we do that, then the actions we take now will allow us to write our future. The actions we take will allow us to define our tomorrow. Then what do we want that world to look like? When the world paused in early 2020 due to COVID, that was the burning question we all had on our minds. It was an unprecedented moment where, for a few weeks at least, we all seemed to focus on the same thing. What do we want our future world to be? Although the sound of birdsong and the amazing clean air was striking for us here at Nissan, it didn't actually make us fundamentally change our direction. You see, long before the COVID-19 crisis, at Nissan we had already defined our purpose to be drive innovation to enrich people's lives. This is our overarching guiding principle. This is the North Star we have in the company. It's an aspirational long-term view of the change we want to make in the world. For us at Nissan, it means getting everyone in the same direction, to follow the same dream and to share the same vision for a better world. And as we start to see the first signs that we're coming out of COVID, we expect more people to get behind us than ever before. And that's important, because by dreaming and working and moving as one, we can actually get closer to the real tangible change we all want to see in the world. So with the effect clear, here at Nissan, we set about defining the cause that would bring that change about. That cause, the tool we use to bring us to our goal of effecting change, is Nissan Intelligent Mobility. Nissan Intelligent Mobility describes the unique ways that we deliver on our purpose. It includes our hero technologies, our features, and benefits. Those technologies are unique to Nissan, and they align with the principles that underpin our company, allowing us to deliver on our purpose to enrich people's lives. Nissan Intelligent Mobility is the tool we have to cause the change in the world that we at Nissan want to see. So let's get into what it really means, Nissan Intelligent Mobility. How does it link to our desire to enrich people's lives? So let me start by describing a vision within it. Within Intelligent Mobility, we say it's moving people to a better world. Now, what does that mean? Let's split it in two to really have a look. The most important idea here is that we don't see ourselves being just in the automotive industry. We are in the mobility industry. If people were born to move, then we exist to move them. Now, all of this, of course, sounds lovely and inspiring, but it's more than just words on a page. As we soon understood, the better way for people to move was free of traditional combustion engines. We at Nissan quickly dedicated huge efforts and resources to developing. The result, of course, was the Nissan Leaf, the first mainstream 100% EV, almost a decade before the industry tried to catch up. Again, we saw that every aspect of people's lives was increasingly interconnected. We put our intelligence at the service of making sure that our cars not only meet but exceed these expectations, with a clear plan for delivery of state-of-the-art connected services. And if tomorrow, and related to the previous panel discussion, we see that a fully autonomous, artificial intelligent driven mobility is the best way to help move people to a better world, then we will dedicate all of our energy to making this smart, safe, and accessible to everyone. It's not just about moving people from A to B, though. It goes beyond just being a commodity. When we talk about moving people to a better world, we mean a world that's more sustainable, where people have accessible means to live and consume more responsibly, minimizing their impact on the environment. A world that's safer, where people can move freely without risk or worry of harm to themselves or to their families. And a world that's more connected, where people can enjoy seamless and simplified interactions, not only with each other in the car, but within and between environments. A world that's ultimately more exciting, where technology combines with a deep human understanding to create intuitive, unforgettable, emotional experiences. This is our vision. But to get there, we need a tool, and we need that strategy. And that's where Nissan Intelligent Mobility comes in. And we have 3 pillars: intelligent driving, intelligent power, and intelligent integration. Let me focus on intelligent power. It's about creating the most efficient models possible with smart engineering like hybrid and electric drivetrain systems to minimize the environmental impact. It is the combination of our intelligent mobility vision and intelligent mobility strategy as a business that's our recipe for weathering the storm of the current chaos that we're in. That's the reason at Nissan that we've channeled all of our collective energy, our resources, our investments, and our 240,000 strong workforce for the past 5 years, and on which we continue to build our future. Here at Nissan, we know that we need to shift to electric powertrain technologies without compromising anything that our customers have come to expect from us. Our engineering centers in Japan and around the world have been working on this since the release of the groundbreaking Leaf over 10 years ago. But the urgency has changed in the last 5 years, and we've seen that the time is right to pick up the pace. Under the Nissan Intelligent Mobility strategy, we offer multiple world-class electric powertrain technologies within intelligent power. We give clean, sustainable mobility to all, with zero compromise on range, convenience, or reliability. As seen in the game-changing Leaf, and will be seen in the revolutionary new AMIEO, intelligent power is accelerating our move to a zero-emissions future. But it's not just our ambition for cleaner air. Our electric powertrains are also a gateway to an amazing driving performance, with instant torque, incredible acceleration, and unprecedented levels of control. We know our customers are adventurers, and we've always prided ourselves in giving them everyday excitement. Through groundbreaking hero technologies like e-pedal and e-power, intelligent power will allow Nissan to put the excitement of state-of-the-art technologies into the hands of adventurers everywhere. And at Nissan, we've taken our innovations in intelligent power one step further. Whether on the track as the first Japanese entrant into Formula E or on the roads with our amazing new ARIA, through intelligent power, we're continuing our legacy and indeed reinventing performance innovation for the new era. The exponential advances in 100% electric performance and hero technologies such as e-Force mean that efficiency and sustainability are now the gateway to the ultimate driving experience. The reality is that everyone inside and outside this industry is placing huge, expensive, company-defining bets on where the world is going, and with it, where we should be going next. At Nissan, we don't want to simply put bets on the future. We want to write the future. As Lincoln said in the past, the best way to predict the future is to create it. And that's what we want to do at Nissan, challenging the status quo every step of the way. And that's why 50% of our car sales in Europe will be electrified by the end of 2023. This is the first effect of that shift that we started as a company many, many years ago. That shift to enrich people's lives, to move people to a better world. These are the first steps of our journey towards a cleaner, greener product lineup. We're confident that our hero technologies under Nissan Intelligent Power will excite our customers to join us as we move forward towards our North Star. By 2023, 50% of our customers will have joined us on the journey. And that's just the beginning. We're ambitious in our goal, and we know that our journey to a better world requires us to move quickly. The real tangible change in the world that we at Nissan wants to see means we need to be agile. And we know that this is what our European customers are looking and expecting from us. With this in mind, by the beginning of 2024, 100% of our passenger car models in Europe will be offered with an electrified version. And as we move towards the end of the decade, we continue to stretch ourselves, with 100% of the cars that we sell in Europe totally electrified. Again, responding to what we believe the European customer wants from Nissan. Newton's law of cause and effect. The actions that we take today will define our tomorrow. At Nissan, our purpose is to drive innovation to enrich people's lives. That's our anchoring principle, our North Star. As I previously explained, it's the aspirational long-term view that we want to make in the world, of the change we want to make in the world. In Nissan, we follow the same dream and we share the same vision for a better world. And we're working hard via Nissan Intelligent Mobility to make it happen. We know that European society is ready for that journey too, and together we're on the path for real, tangible change. But the path that we're on is just the beginning for us here at Nissan. Because as you remember, I mentioned all over the world last year, people collectively asked what the future of our planet should look like. And we were asking ourselves that too at Nissan. We'll continue to use our Nissan Intelligent Mobility vision and strategy to push the boundaries of what's achievable in the future. And that's why we've been confident and bold enough recently to announce our goals for carbon neutrality in 2050. Our commitment to enrich people's lives by moving to a better world is unshakable. Thank you.
Thank you, Clíodhna. Hope I got it right again. Thank you for the very nice presentation. And if you ever wonder, changing careers, I think you would be a very good news reporter. Because that first segment of your presentation, I thought I was watching the news, and it was very good. You were very good at it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bon.
Well, we continue this
Fórum da Mobilidade Inteligente.
in this forum. We have Nicolas Tshann. He's from Nissan AMIEO.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nicolas Tshann. I'm the Marketing Director for Qashqai and Extrail in AMIEO, which stands basically from here down to Australia. So I have the pleasure of being with you today because we are just about to launch the new Qashqai and the new Extrails. Extrail was announced yesterday. Very proud of that. And they will both be launched with a brand new technology for Western Europe, which is called e-Power. So I'm going to give you a bit of a quick insight on why e-Power and how we see it moving forward. So my next slide is, we believe e-Power, and I wrote that, is the perfect transition technology between ICE and EV. And I hope at the end of my presentation, you can buy into that as well. Moving on, global trends. This is what Clíodhna just described. Basically, it's a complicated world out there, right? We've got climate change, we're looking at the wildfires out there. We've got reduction in fossil fuel dependence. We've got emission standards everywhere, incredible norms, especially for Western Europe, ahead of the rest of the world. Urbanization, battery tech is moving very fast. We've got a shift in consumer mindset. We've just seen, with COVID, basically electrified cars have taken over ICE in quite a few countries already, and it's just increasing faster and faster every day. The ban of non-electric cars in the city centers, I was looking at Madrid, London, Paris, they're all out there, right? You just name it and they're out there. And there is a fight for ICE or fight against ICE coming up. And finally, digitalization. So when we combine everything, well, basically, looking at it, the tightening CO2 targets, Europe, you can see the 73 grams down there, 79 grams, is going to be tougher than US and then China, right? And then we see ICE technology banning in quite a few countries in the background. China, 2040, France, 2030, Germany, 2030. I'm not going to go through the whole list, but you get the message, right? It's going to be tough times. So we are going to need collectively transition technologies, right? The world is not going to move from zero to hero just overnight. So here we are. Overview of technology landscape, vehicles increasing EV availability across the globe. Basically, battery capacity are going up very, very fast. 500 kilometers used to be extraordinary 3 or 4 years ago in terms of range. 500 kilometers a day is almost the norm in a lot of the cars that are available on the EV market when you're getting to a significant size. Charging infrastructures, they're an opportunity and a threat at the same time. I was in Hong Kong until a couple of months ago. Tesla was the number one brand, and people were queuing at 5 a.m. to be able to charge their Tesla because there was not enough infrastructure versus the car park. And this is clearly a limiting factor today. And finally, the society is changing, as we just mentioned, accelerated by the COVID effect. People are probably seeing their gardens a lot more. They're seeing the impacts of global warming, and there's a high level of concern over that. So moving on, well, basically, as Cleo was just mentioning it, we see Europe moving to a majority of EV not before 2030, 2035, which means there will be some very strong need for transition technologies, right? And these transition technologies are not only going to be one. So the one I'm going to show you today, which is e-Power, is one of the core ones we believe at the Nissan Group is going to deliver on the customer needs. Okay, so our strategy, here we go. A, the infrastructure. As I just mentioned, Hong Kong is not only going to be one country out there, which is going to be the one where you don't have charging infrastructure. We know already right now, if we were to move to 30 to 40% electrification, fully electrified, I mean EV cars, full EVs, there will not be an infrastructure in the background to support the need, right? Not everybody has a house with a parking lot where you can actually plug into the wall. So that is one key limiting factor. Second point, time. The charging times are still quite long. Not everybody can afford today or has the amount of spend available to afford super fast charging infrastructure, right? And the charging infrastructure is very limited, which means that the majority of the people who will be charging their cars will be charging them over slow wall-based home systems or in very faster units, but in very limited numbers. So here, again, a second barrier to mass market EV just for tomorrow morning. Yes, it's coming, but it's going to take time. Complexity, well, until very recently, there were like 3 different charging units, AC, DC, CHAdeMO, something else, you name it. It was non-harmonized, which just adds more complexity to the background. Access constraints. So here they've got multiple private subscription systems versus the free ones in the cities and all the rest. Where can I charge? Which is going to cost me less? Again, complexity in the system. Finally, cost, the initial cost of the vehicles today. We're talking between 11,000 and 15,000 euros surcharge versus standard car. It's not something which is sustainable without government incentives. And with the COVID crisis, as mentioned by Cleo, we're in a very difficult environment right now. Will the governments be able to sustain that level of incentive over the near future? We already see some of the governments backing out of massive incentives for this. So when you put all this together, the transition technology is a must. The question is, how are we going to answer that need? Well, basically, our answer to that is the following. We're going to use e-Power as a directional replacement for our ICE engines, right? So basically, that whole upper part of the market up there, we are thinking is going to move to e-Power for us in terms of our lineup. And why is e-Power the answer? Well, we think e-Power is going to be the answer because several reasons. A, you get all the benefits of EV driving. It's an EV platform. B, it's part of our strategy, right? As just developed by Cleo, we want to have 50% of our sales in Europe electrified by 2023. I'm just reusing your slide there. On our 4 core models, which are Juke, Qashqai, X-Trail, and Aria, we're looking at 80% electrification. And inside those 80% of electrification, we've got 50% e-Power. So the big powertrain coming up for Nissan in Europe in the next 4 to 5 years is going to be e-Power for us because, and that's what I'm going to explain, it answers that customer need for a financially affordable technology moving towards the future, which has no strings attached. No strings attached means you don't need to plug it into the wall because the infrastructure just isn't there. Okay? So, moving on, Qashqai electrified journey. As an example, I'm going to use Qashqai. Obviously, I know that one really well. We're going into mild hybrid first, and then very quickly, basically early next year, we're moving into e-Power. E-Power is forecasted to be our main replacement engine, right? So it's going to be more than 60% of our mix. We're looking at it as a core replacement for high output petrols, for hybrids, and for diesel powertrains. So we've got a huge amount of people moving out of diesel. They need an electrified solution 48 volt is not going to be able to do everything. They're going to be looking for something which is fun to drive, high output, but at the same time, very fuel efficient. And this is where e-power comes in because the affordability of the technology makes it viable for the masses. So innovation first, we think we'll be the only ones out there to have it. It's a fully electric platform on which we will put a limited quantity of battery, which is going to be charge, discharge. And that battery is going to be fueled in the background, as you will see in the video that's upcoming, by an ICE engine, a latest high-tech. It's a variable compression ratio engine. We are the only ones to produce this today on Earth, as you may know, in the Infiniti QX50 in the US, Middle East, and China. We already have this technology available. We are bringing it to Europe to support our charge-discharge of our e-power batteries, okay? Excitement, you basically have an EV platform, so you get EV driving sensations, you get the initial torque, that thrill of acceleration from red light to red light. So basically, overall, it's very exciting to drive, like an EV is. And then the third one is accessible technology. Because the amount of battery is not huge, you don't have 200 kilograms of battery within the car. You will see that. It's a limited battery pack. It stays affordable. So the future of transitioning needs to be fuel efficient, fun, and affordable, and that's all that e-power actually delivers on. So, and this is almost my last slide. When you look at pricing in the market today, mild hybrids have put the prices up by 500. You look at diesel Euro 6 full, you're talking 2,000, 2,500. Hybrids, they're around 3,000 euros. And that's 80% of today's market. Whatever way we look at it, people's buying power has not gone up by 50% to buy a plug-in or an EV yet, unless they have government incentives. Okay? So where we need to be is we need to be in the core of the market, that 2,500 to 3,000 euro bracket, where people are going to be buying cars tomorrow. And we need to bring electrification to them, and we need to bring fun to drive. This is what we are planning to do, aligned with the strategy that Clio just developed for us. So, as just explained, e-power is going to be fun, it's going to be affordable, and it's going to be fully electrified to deliver maximum CO2 benefit, which is our end goal at the end of the day. So it is for us the perfect transition technology because it solves the paradigm shift between fuel economy and fun to drive. You don't have to choose anymore. You can get both in one package at an affordable price. There you go. Now a quick e-power video for us to enjoy. I'll give you a bit more insight on the technology. just to summarize, the electric engine is now the master. The ICE engine is the slave. It's the opposite of a hybrid. E-Power is a further step in towards electrification, and we're very proud to bring it to the market in Western Europe. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Nicolas, for your exciting presentation, and thank you for passing on to us that excitement that you feel about this e-power. I'm really looking forward to driving it. I would say that you're the human e-power here in this forum. So let's stay with us. We'll have some questions for you later on. Agora.
And now in the studio, I will pass the floor to Jorge Cruz Morais, who's the President of the Portuguese Energy Association. Hello, Jorge. Hello, welcome. What do you have to tell us today? I wanted to talk to you a bit of the integrated vision between the energy and mobility sectors. Allow me to begin by telling you that I think that the mobility and the energy sector are experiencing an unprecedented change in recent history, or even in the history of the sectors. Both began at the end of the 19th century, but start of the 20th century perhaps. And throughout the 20th century, there were many changes. A lot of development took place because of social evolution, technological evolution. There were a series of evolutions, but they didn't change the sector's structure. The sectors are the same, despite there being huge steps. For example, in the energy sector, I'll speak about nuclear power plants, a huge change in the 40s, or the combined cycle stations, which allowed us for energy efficiency of 60 when we had 30 in the classic thermoelectric power, in the thermal power stations. We had a huge increase in the grid transmission and the voltage. This involved the sector, but the structure was still the same until now. Mobility also had a lot of change because there was the development in aviation, the fast trains, but the basis, the core was always the same until at the end of the noughties, the world changed completely. And there are deep changes in the start of the 20th century, which were driven by, and we all know, climate change. It's the buzzword, isn't it? I like to talk about this to show you how recent it is. We all feel that it is part of our daily life to discuss climate change, though we think that this is something that has been integrated in our society for ages. I had the privilege of being hosting or helping with the privatization of the EDP, the Portuguese utility company. And at the time, I had a roadshow for the company. And this roadshow was throughout the whole of Europe and the United States. And we reached out to about 200 investors, if I remember. Pedro, nobody asked us about EDP's emissions. And this was 1997. Nobody cared about our emissions at the time. So this was something that didn't exist. Kyoto already existed in 1996, but yet it wasn't a concern. And we only became aware that the situation was becoming unsustainable quite a few years later on. And I'd like to show you the reasons why, if I can change the slide. There we go. In this chart, we have the evolution of consumption. This is by the IEA. 1,000 million tons of oil equivalent. The first major components for demand are fossil fuels, as we know. Coal, oil, natural gas. And the global energy consumption, which is 10 billion tons of oil equivalent, grew between 2000 and 2019. I didn't go for 2020 because the pandemic made changes, but it grew about 40%. So 4% per annum, more or less. Very close to 4% per annum, which is impressive. Impressive also are the emissions in millions of tons of CO2. And we have 20, 23, 30, 33. Emissions keep growing. As we all know, these are greenhouse gas. The concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere before the beginning of the 20th century, so in the 19th century, was about 280 parts per million. And we've just reached 410 parts per million, when, according to climate scientists, 350 would be the maximum, the cap. And we're at 410. And this means that it is absolutely necessary that we avoid continuing this growth, or else climate change will become irreversible, and the impact on the climate will have some of the effects as we feel today, but extreme. The gentleman is saying that he can never change the slide when he wants to, but we'll get there eventually. The solution to all this, what is it? To try and bring back things to normal. One is to reduce growth in consumption. It keeps growing, as we see. Europe, the United States, Japan are already reducing their energy consumption. But the emerging economies, the biggest growth comes from India. The major consumer at the moment is China. And we can't stop them because it has to do with economy, and we need to add Africa to the equation. But to see the pace of growth in consumption, China at the start of this year, 2000, had about half the consumption of the United States. And now it has much more consumption than the United States. So we are talking about an absolutely massive scale. So we need to restrict growth in consumption. How? Being more efficient. There is no other way. And to be more efficient, we need to electrify, because electrifying allows us to increase energy efficiency. Machines are more efficient. And try to decarbonize the sector. So make sure that we are able to do this. Of all this consumption that I mentioned, of the 10 billion, these are numbers that are easy. Industry has 2.9, transport 2.9, buildings 3, cities 3.1. This means what? This means that 30% of the consumption is industry, 30% is transport, 30% is buildings. It's easy to memorize. And if we go deeper into the transport sector, which is what's bringing us here, and these are the numbers that I picked up in several places, vehicles for normal passenger cars account for 50% of the energy used, trucks 30%, aviation 10%, and shipping another 10%. You still have trains, but these are quite less. This is in terms of energy requirements. So 50% of the 30% of transports. We're talking about 15% of overall energy consumption, and perhaps a bit less in terms of emissions. The mobility sector has a major impact, and it's the one that we can change a bit more easily, so to speak, and affects globally. It affects the whole planet because everywhere we have shipping, we have aviation, we have cars for people to travel. So electrification is key, and it can be done in two different ways, either through the batteries or through fuel cells. In batteries, we have a fundamental issue, which is autonomy. It has been solved. Obviously, we all recognize that cars can go for longer, but it needs to be the access needs to be solved, of course, but the utilities will deal with this, I'm sure. And we will have easy access to charging the batteries. But obviously, batteries for long distance for goods may not be enough. And here, the subject may be hydrogen. Hydrogen with fuel cells. I've got a few numbers here. So for 1 kilogram of hydrogen, you need 55 kilowatt hours, which allows a vehicle paired with a fuel cell to drive for 90 kilometers. It will have a 90-kilometer autonomy. It's much less efficient than our batteries because in your EV, you can drive 100 kilometers with about 22 kilowatt hours. And here you need 55. Not to mention other losses, of course. So hydrogen also has another capacity, which is as a fuel, it reaches very high temperatures. And when you have hydrogen and in the air, you get water, so zero pollution. And what we can achieve is that hydrogen will, in the industries that need heat, it will become extremely important and can be very important for shipping, for aviation, and for goods, long-distance goods. What does this imply? The electricity sector will need to produce this energy that is being asked. How can we do this without access to coal? Just to give you an idea, to produce 1 kilowatt hour of electricity from a coal-fired power station, you have 1 kilo of CO2 emitted. So if I have a combined cycle, it's 300 grams of CO2. So the political decision in Portugal and in the Europe of shutting down coal-fired power plants is the right one. And we can reduce emissions greatly. But we need energy, we need power. How do we do that? Through renewables. But renewables have their limits also. Well, wind, for instance, but the sun, luckily, in a lot of countries, you can use the sun. Obviously, there are two features here associated with volatility, whether one or the other with different volatility. And the sun is only shining for a certain part of the day. I know I'm taking quite a while. But it's very interesting. Thank you. I will try to conclude. What I would like to tell you is that the development of renewables, namely solar and offshore wind, are the alternatives that we have at the moment. Everybody talks about nuclear fusion. Nuclear fusion is not radioactive. It doesn't have chain reactions, so what happened in Chernobyl or in Japan won't happen. But it is always 30 years away, and maybe we'll need to wait another 30 years. And we can't wait 30 years. So the solutions are to develop renewables, and that's what we are doing. And another one is digitalization, which is necessary to cope with the increasing complexity on managing grids and cars as well. Because how can we manage distributed generation, which was centralized and only flowed one way and now flows two ways? And we need to manage this without have systems that are able to do it. And obviously, all of this will imply a new relationship with customers, managing energy efficiency inside people's homes. And that obviously requires data processing. So I will now move on to a few conclusions, if this presentation allows me. So these are my 4 conclusions. Mobility and the energy sectors are involved in the same challenge, and they do, in fact, share common objectives. Those changes that are required will have a structural impact on the industries and mean that new operators and new needs will turn up. And that is my last conclusion. Just as in all revolutions, there are processes that need to be changed, but new opportunities are open for incumbents and for new entrants. So I believe that these are trying times for the mobility and the energy sectors. Your eyes are shining, aren't they? Yes, there's a lot that can be done. Thank you very much, Jorge. We will now move on. Ian will have to leave soon, so we will now speak to Ian, who's the Chief Economist of the European Patent Office. Ian Ménière, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me here. I'm very glad to participate in this panel. And my presentation is, I think, quite complementary to the previous one. Basically, I'm here to share with you some insights from a study that we published a few months ago on innovation in batteries and electricity storage. And as you can see, this study is a joint study with the International Energy Agency, precisely because the topic of electricity storage and the batteries in particular is of high interest for the International Energy Agency in the perspective of the energy transition and the electrification integration of a renewable energy in the grid. So what did we do in this study? So as the European, as a patent office for Europe, we are located at the forefront of technological change. We see innovations that are coming that are not yet in the market. And we have a strong expertise in searching that data and making that data speak. And this is why we feel it's important to track, to monitor major emerging trends and to document them for our users and for the general public. And definitely the rise of innovation in electricity storage and in particular in batteries is one of these trends in past years. So for this study, we identified all inventions that are subject to patent protection in at least 2 countries in the world, so what we call international patent families. And we counted more than 7,000 such families since 2000. And as you can see on the chart, their number increases very fast over time. Actually, the average growth rate for these inventions has been 50% every year, which is 4 times faster than the growth of patenting in other fields. And this is related to batteries mainly. Batteries account for the bulk of these patents. So batteries are driving the trend. And the increase of innovation in batteries is related to various uses, but definitely electric vehicles have played a pivotal role here. I will come back to that. But first, let me elaborate a bit on the scope of the study. So what are we looking at more precisely? So as I said, we are considering mainly electrochemical storage. So batteries represent the bulk of innovation in electricity storage. And most of innovation in batteries correspond to developments at the cell level, so enhancement in the cells, in particular lithium-ion. But if we look at the patents, we see that 50% of those patents related to cells are in fact related to manufacturing and engineering. And I think that's an important lesson of what happened in the past decade, let's say. The production of batteries has gone on a massive scale, has become really fully industrialized, which allowed a decrease of the cost of those batteries of 90% in the past 10 years for electric vehicles. This is really related to large-scale manufacturing, and a competitive advantage in that respect is related not only to the mastering of the technology, but to the mastering of its manufacturing. Another important lesson from counting the patents is that innovation in batteries has been very much focused, increasingly actually over time, on lithium and lithium-ion batteries, which now largely dominate the market. It's really the dominant paradigm, although there is still a lot of innovation within the field of lithium and lithium-ion batteries. And finally, using patent data, we are also able to look at other developments than at the cell level. And it's especially interesting to look at the battery packs, because it can inform us about the type of applications for which batteries are being developed. And this is my next slide, actually. When you look at these battery packs, you can identify 3 waves of innovation over time since 2000. The first wave is related to consumer electronics, in short. So phones, laptops, cameras, and so on, that are all equipped with batteries, and especially with lithium-ion batteries. But what you can see over time, and it's the light blue line, is that this field of use of batteries has been overpassed in recent years by automotive applications, and now really it's automotive that is driving the trend, and it's increasing extremely fast. So now the momentum of innovation in batteries is clearly driven by automotive. And if you look at the light gray line, you also see a third wave coming. So it's just a start at the moment, but in terms of needs, of demand, it will be as important as electric vehicles. It's a stationary application. So basically applications of batteries to balance the grid, to integrate renewable energy that is by definition intermittent and needs to be stored. A last remark on this slide is that you have strong spillover effects between these three types of applications. So batteries for electric vehicles have benefited from developments of batteries for consumer electronics. And you can likewise expect synergies and spillovers between batteries applications for electric vehicles and batteries applications for storage. And by the way, it was said already, batteries for vehicles can be used also for grid storage in the future. A quick word on the origins of these patents. It's very clear from this chart, actually, there's a clear domination by Japan in this field. So Japanese applicants were already ahead at the beginning of the century, but they have increased their lead and now are largely ahead. And then you have behind a pack of the other main world regions, Europe, the US, Korea, and China, that are very close to each other in terms of number of patents. But if you look more closely, you see that Korea and China have been increasing very fast in recent years, so faster than Europe and US. It's also interesting to look at the top applicants. And in fact, if you look at the top 10, you have two Korean companies and 7 Japanese companies, including Nissan. So it's a confirmation of the lead of the Japanese industries in that field. And it's also interesting to see that you have some, in the top 5 that you have here, you have some consumer electronics companies that have also extended now to electric vehicles. So I mean Samsung, Panasonic, and you have increasingly new entrants that are companies from the automotive sector. Here you have Toyota and Bosch very, very clearly, as well as Nissan, of course, or Toyota that are a bit lower in the top 10 ranking. A last observation, given the time I have, is about the future, actually. So, as I said at the beginning, with patent information, we can have a window into future technologies that have not reached the market yet, and this is one of the reasons why we do these studies. And we see clearly in the patent data that there's a lot of innovation going on in the chemistry of batteries, especially of lithium-ion batteries, with the anode cathodes, but also the electrolyte. And I would like to highlight the electrolyte to conclude this presentation. So we see a very fast increase of patenting related to solid-state batteries, which will hit the market in the coming years, for sure. And in 2018, they represented nearly 10% of all innovation related to batteries. So to lithium-ion batteries. So that's quite high and still increasing. And if you look at the geographical origins of these patents related to solid state, as compared with patents related to any type of lithium-ion technologies, you see more of the pattern that we see in general. So a very strong domination of Japanese applicants. They represent more than half of all patent applications related to solid-state batteries, but also a lower share of Korea and a slightly lower share of the United States. And worryingly, Europe does not seem to be present in terms of control of the intellectual property related to this major next forthcoming technologies of the world of lithium-ion batteries. So these are the main insights that I wanted to share you today. And I will be pleased, of course, to take your questions by email if needed. And I would also like to mention that we are going in 1 week to publish a next study on clean innovation in clean energy in general, again with International Energy Agency, highlighting the role of electric vehicles in the field of energy. And I invite you to consult our website next week if you're interested. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yann, for your presentation and for that call, that warning about that new study that's coming up. We'll be looking forward to seeing it also. And we know you have to leave sooner than the rest of everybody. And we're going to proceed to the questions that are reaching us from our platform. And we are hoping to do the first questions to you as soon as they come here. So let's see if we have questions for Yann. Yes, we have. And the first question, I will say it in Portuguese because you have a translator on your ear. I hope so. A pergunta é:
Which is the patent that's still to be developed for a perfect future of storage technologies?
Okay. Well, that's not an easy question. Actually, this is the question that the IEA would like, for which the IEA would like to have the answer. So, what I can say is that an important message of the study is that today lithium-ion is dominant. Lithium-ion is definitely fit for electric vehicles and for consumer electronics. But the key for the coming years will also be to have appropriate battery technologies for the grid, for a large-scale stationary storage, and there it's not sure that lithium-ion is the solution. And you may as well have solutions related to redox flow batteries, for instance, or metal air batteries. So the options are open in that respect, and it's very important to keep that in mind, especially for investors. There is no one dominant pattern for the battery world in the coming year, if we take into account the needs of the grid.
A couple of more questions for you, Yann, and then I will let you go. The first one, how do you foresee the next 10 to 20 years will be in terms of development? Will we watch one of the biggest changes in history of mankind until 2050?
It's not, again, not an easy question. Well, if we take it from the perspective of the energy transition, yes, we can expect major technology changes in the structure of the economy with this shift to electrification virtually in all sectors. All those that can be electrified with batteries, and as a later stage with hydrogen, for instance, as this was mentioned, and this is combined with the digital revolution that is ongoing. So definitely the technology landscape is going to change massively, deeply in the coming years. And probably in terms of societal implications, the two main trends are indeed electrification and digitization.
Okay, one last question for you. If vehicles superseded consumer electronics, can we say that automotive industry is the main drive of innovation at this moment?
In terms of energy transition, yes, very clearly.
Okay, short answer, but a very good answer. Yann, I will let you go because I know you have another appointment at 5 minutes from now. So thank you very much for your time and continue your excellent work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yann. And now questions for Clíodhna. And the first question is, don't you think that the auto industry is still very lonely in this trip to decarbonization? Are the other industries not so worried about it?
It's chicken and egg. The auto industry is a little bit lonely, but because I think we are in everyone's home to start with. Mm-hmm. And also because, especially here in Europe, if you look at the last few years, we have been a little bit demonized, rightly so, because of some practices around heavy pollution and and the impact that has both on the environment and on public health. So I think there has been a greater awareness in general. And I think because it is an asset, the car is an asset that everybody has, or a lot of people have access to. It is something that as society shifts and looks for a change, the first thing they want to see change is, well, what am I purchasing? What can I change in my habits to help shift to a better world? In that sense, the auto industry has come in for a little bit of pressure, early pressure, versus some of the other industries. Yes, we're alone, but it's a question of time. We cannot reach the climate goals we have as a society here in Europe or in other parts of the world without a much more pan-industrial approach to this. The auto industry, we're leading. In Europe, we're leading globally. We should be very proud of that fact as a society. We're not accepting some of the things that we accepted in the past, and we should be, really incredibly proud of that stance we're taking. And I have full confidence that it's just a matter of time before the other industries step up and follow in.
Yeah, because it's important to pass the message that this energy change in the automobile industry is not going to solve everything. Because what I think is that people think that, okay, we're going to change to electric cars and the world is going to be better and it's all going to be fixed. But it's just a small part of it, isn't it?
It is just a small part of it. I mean, it's an important part of it. And I think Jorge's presentation showed that. I think it was 50% is coming from the auto industry. So it's extremely important that we change, and that's why we're taking leadership on it. But even when we look at solutions like hydrogen, which can be used across different industries, the question will be, when can we have green hydrogen available to us? And the EU is moving on it. We know there was a paper released last July from the EU on the roadmap, building a roadmap towards decarbonisation across different industries in the EU, and how the role that hydrogen will have to play in a carbon neutral society. Portugal is actually very well positioned, I believe, on that, and is in line to be a clean hydrogen exporter in the future. But other countries in Europe aren't there yet. So there's going to be two different shifts. There's going to be the shift to the technology when the solutions are available. That will have to happen. And in parallel to that, we need the governments to row in. We need government incentivizing the shift to the cleaner energy sources, because the willingness of the consumer is actually already there.
Yeah, Nicolas and Jorge, feel free to jump in at any time if you want to answer also and say something about what's being discussed. I have a question for Jorge. Jorge, já percebemos?
We understand that electricity will be the dominant energy, but how will it be produced in 10 years' time? There's no miracles, as we said before. We will have to bet on renewable energies in the next 10 years. Only 10 years? Yes, at least 10 years. And there's two ways, aeolic energy, but I think solar will have a huge impulse. It will be the next energy for the next years. And we need to look for other things. What I think is essential, as I said before, is replace the centrals, the traditional ones. 3 times more than the others. And we still have a lot of them. The electrical sector in Portugal started at 50 terawatt and 100 kilotons of carbon. If we close the Sines and the other one, we will reduce the emissions, replacing the production in Sines with others. And it's a fast way in Portugal because it has these two central plants available. And then comments to what was said before. I have very difficulty imagining
hydrogen can be built or be available in a short period of time. We need a lot of energy to do it. It will take time to do it. And even Portugal, that is very well placed, doesn't have energy enough. We have 50 terawatt hours of consumption in Portugal. And 10 terawatt hours is good to a lot of things, but it's not good for the global Europe. Spain is 30, 50, whatever, terawatt hours. So it's very difficult to have available hydrogen in a short period of time. But anyway, I think it is the solution for some type of usage of energy. And one of them, of course, is aviation and shipping.
So, Jorge, you said earlier, for the consumer, the normal consumer, it would be electrical energy. But for shipping and aviation, hydrogen, as long as batteries do not have enough autonomy to take another hours to ship from here to Paris are more than 1,000 kilometers, we have a problem then. Another question for Nicolas.
Is the average and maximum efficiency of the ICE engine in the e-power platform and of the combined ICE and electrical motor?
So it is maximized in multiple ways, basically. So we're using an extremely efficient variable compression ratio engine, as I mentioned. So it basically helps you determine either you put it in the high compression mode, and in that case, you have maximum efficiency in terms of fuel economy, or you put it in the low compression mode. In that case, you get maximum torque out of it. So depending on your usage pattern and the battery need, right? Because the battery is the buffer in between the electric drivetrain and the charge demand on the driver's side, it helps us optimize in a much more efficient way versus a traditional, I would say, ICE engine platform where you don't have that capability of the battery of taking the load in the background in terms of managing what we would call the transient modes, which are the intermediate modes.
One thing I didn't understand well. Are we going to have an e-power engine just for the Qashqai, or are we going to have an e-power engine for all the models of Nissan cars?
So we're launching it on Qashqai and X-Trail. This is in public domain. And then, as Matt Weaver mentioned, I'm not entitled to divulge all the future plans of Nissan, but there are future plans. We're not coming in and being serious about the technology without having bigger plans than just Qashqai and X-Trail globally.
Yeah, I'm always trying to get some more information out of you, but I'm not being successful at it. Okay, I have more questions.
If I can just jump in.
Yeah, of
May
course.
I just jump in on that very quickly? Just to add to Nicolas' comment, I mean, Nissan, recently we announced a major breakthrough, actually. We can now achieve 50% brake thermal efficiency on the engine that we're using to power our e-power system. So it's versus an industry average of below 40%. So it's really an engine, as Nick has mentioned, that is absolutely optimized. And when running in these conditions, is going to really be a game changer in the market.
Yeah, that's why I was asking if we're going to have it like on the Nissan Leaf, for instance. Silence is golden. Almost slipped. We have more questions for Jorge here. Jorge,
Within cities, there's a huge waste of biomass. Would that be a solution, for instance? I will refer to the big cities, where it makes sense, and I will explain later why. The domestic waste in Lisbon, for instance, it's separated theoretically. I don't know if it's effective or no, but the rest of the country, no garbage goes to the dumps. There's one company, there's an electrical plant that uses the waste, the urban waste, and burns them as fuel to create electricity. And this participant, what he says is, it's already here. It's all transformed in electricity. And maybe there will be some ashes and some things that are really waste, but the majority is. This happens in Lisbon and in Porto. And it doesn't make sense to be in a small city, but in a big one, yes. And it can be channeled, that waste, from the rest of the country to a big city, yes, of course. But it's very expensive. I don't know if we have more questions, live questions. There's one question for Nicolas that I already made. What models of Nissan have foreseen the e-power energy? So we will finish the Q&A session, this second one. Thank you all speakers and the participants as well. here and at their homes, and to Adriana, Nicolas, and Yann that already left us. Thank you all, and I hope to see you next year physically. Bye, Diana. Bye, Nicolas. See you. George.
Thank you.
And we will be back
Bye.
for the third and final panel of Nissan.